Hey, greetings everybody, GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore and Warcraft. We've been kind of recapping. We started the third Chronicles, and we are in the material that's between the second and the third wars. And there's quite a bit of material, but the first big chunk of that, which is Chronicles 3, the beginning of Chronicles 3, has been mostly recap. So stay a while and listen to this one. It's called Struggle for a Broken World, and we'll see if we start to do some new stuff or if it's still a little bit recap. When the dust settled on Outland, the survivors slowly realized that this battered realm had become one of the most important strategic places in all the cosmos. Many of Ner'zhul's portals were permanently open. The world was now a crossroads for any force that wished to travel quickly from one end of the universe to the other. This is probably where we're going to get all these other Outland races, like the Ethereals. The Legion saw Outland as the perfect staging ground to launch assaults against other worlds. The demons dispatched a pit lord named Magtheridon, a cruel and powerful commander, to seize the location and its inhabitants. He hunted down the remnants of the Horde, enslaving those who surrendered and butchering those who still had the will to resist. The orcs who died opposing him had the easier fate. And I think Magtheridon's lair is like the first Burning Crusade raid, and he takes his lair right underneath Hellfire Citadel. Those who surrendered were forced to drink Magtheridon's demonic blood. For most, it was the second time they had been subjected to the Legion's corruption, but unlike what happened more than a decade ago, the Legion's intention was not merely to bend their wills, but to shatter them entirely. The orcs were transformed into crimson-skinned, barbaric creatures, and their minds could do little else but obey the Burning Legion. Those are the ones that you're fighting when you actually do land on Hellfire Peninsula. Magtheridon's new Fell Horde established its home in Hellfire Citadel, and then struck out to claim other locations with important confluences of power. Foremost among them was the Black Temple. Once a sacred house of worship for the Draenei, the Black Temple had fallen to corruption under the Horde's control, but it still held residual power. Ner'zhul had chosen it as the site of the ill-fated ritual that had destroyed Draenor. Built at the end of a peninsula, the Black Temple was approachable.
Issues with
from,
your application?
Whoa.
Is it the code?
Weird. Okay, so sorry guys, I have something I must have been looking up, that this map site most likely. I'll ditch that. I was looking up something for Elden Ring. Oops, this old content. Sorry. All right. So here we go. Magtheridon's new Fell Horde established its home. Yeah, okay. We read that. Chosen. It was approachable from only one direction, and thus it was easily defensible. It proved to be an excellent staging ground for Magtheridon's campaign of conquest against the remnants of Outland. All right, and Black Temple does become one of the main raids in Burning Crusade. If not, probably that's the ultimate Burning Crusade raid. I mean, you could argue between that and the Isle of Quel'Thalas, but in my opinion, Black Temple is kind of the real big shebang there at the end. Okay. We also have, this is what it looks like now, floating in space. This is officially the Outland. We have not explained why the sort of Ashran type area became the Netherstorm. There's a story there. We still technically haven't explained why this is called Blade's Edge Mountains. They always called it Gorgrond before, although in the novel they're already referring to it as that. We did get that the Zangar Sea dried up and became the Zangar Marsh. The Grand still stayed blissfully healed. There's maybe a story there. And so Terrakar Forest also. We do have the story of Ashen Dune, Shadowmoon Valley and the Black Temple. There's the Dark Portal at the end of the Hellfire Peninsula, Honor Hold, right by Hellfire Citadel. All right, and if you're familiar with Burning Crusade, then you are very familiar with this map. There's Shattrath right there in the middle. All right. The Pit Lord's actions did not go unnoticed. The survivors of the Sons of Lothar mustered what soldiers they could to oppose the demon's incursion. Khadgar, Kurgan Wildhammer, and Danath Trollbane quickly realized they would never be able to defeat this Legion strike force on their own, but they could slow it down. Whenever Magtheridon sent his armies deep into Outland, the Alliance was there to carve up their flanks and pick off any stragglers. The two forces would skirmish intermittently for years. The Draenei who had survived Draenor's destruction could do little to aid the Alliance in these battles. Prophet Velen knew that the Legion would go to tremendous lengths to exterminate any Draenei the demons found, a suspicion that was confirmed by the few unfortunate souls who had crossed their paths and lived to tell of it. Scouring the Draenei was a personal quest for Kil'jaeden. He hated Velen and his followers, and he had hunted them throughout the cosmos ever since they had fled Argus. Every demon knew they would be rewarded for each Draenei head they collected. Velen kept his followers hidden in small, isolated enclaves so that if one was discovered, it would not mean doom for his entire people. There's got to be a story, too, building up to them getting in the Zenidar or Exodar and going off to Azeroth. Velen's followers lived a meager existence, but they were the lucky ones. The Draenei had suffered terrible losses from the Horde's rise to power on Draenor. During the destruction of their grandest city, Shattrath, a fell plague had been unleashed upon their people. Not every Draenei afflicted with the Horde's corrupting magic had died. Many had survived, but they had undergone horrific mutations. These Draenei became known as Krokul, broken. Riddled with painful deformities and no longer able to access the power of the Holy Light, most of them lived in small, scattered tribes, far from the rest of the Draenei. Some fell to violence and despair, and there were brutal skirmishes between the tribes. And I think our short story is about that. The rise of one of the broken, some of the broken. So we could probably read that soon. We'll slip that in. We'll slip that in there soon. The former leader of the Draenei's holy warriors, Akama, took command of the Ash-Tongue tribe. As one of the broken, he too had lost his ability to call on the light. Though he nurtured a small nugget of hope that he and his fellow outcasts would one day rise to their former glory, he first had to lead his people through a period of darkness and disturbing alliances. The last notable faction on Outland was the Sethek Arakoa. The once proud creatures had been brought to ruin by the Horde, and the survivors had been thrown into the corrupting pools of Sethek Hollow, an ordeal that robbed them of their ability to fly and weighed down their minds with an oppressive sense of darkness. The few who had survived the destruction of Draenor took refuge in the Draenei mausoleum of Auchindoun. Dark forces had claimed the area years ago, and the Arakoa spent their time studying them, worshipping them, and eventually falling under their sway. These factions would battle for years, their hidden war locked behind the destroyed Dark Portal. The denizens of Azeroth knew nothing of this struggle for control, and they would soon be occupied with their own troubles. Alright, so we're really just kind of covering why are there all these different races in Azeroth, although we haven't mentioned how the Ethereal got there yet. At least there's an open door for how that could happen. But we've touched on why it's infested with Burning Legion, the Arakoa, where the Broken are coming from, what's going on with the Draenei, the Alliance, the Horde. Alright, cool. We got this episode in the pipe 5x5. Appreciate everybody so much for listening. And I look forward to seeing you next time on Lore of Warcraft.